So welcome to a very special episode of Wide Open Throttle. We have our usual cast of characters from the Motor Trend side, David Freiburger from Hot Rod, and a very special guest today, Mark Royce, President of GM North America. So Mark, glad to have you here. We've been waiting for you a long time.
Yeah, great. Good to be back.
Now you drove in a very special vehicle into our garage 5 minutes ago. What is it?
Well, it's the new C7 Corvette Convertible, which we're not quite out in dealerships yet with, but it's a beautiful car, and we've shown it a little bit here and there. But you know, the C7 is just, you guys all driven the automatics and manuals, both seats. It sounds like the whole thing on the base car, Stingray wise, and this is the convertible, obviously. I'm driving a coupe right now, so I don't know if you had an experience with taking the coupe roof off.
No.
But it's almost a one-handed operation these days, which is fantastic because of carbon fiber and lightweight. And you can take it off, put it in the back, and it's almost a convertible, but it's not. You know, it's not the convertible. So the tonneau cover on this is beautifully done. The seats in this particular one happens to be the sport seat. So beautiful belt pass-throughs and carbon fiber, and just a beautiful car. So very proud of it.
I was amazed how many sort of personal customization steps you can take with the Corvette. All the different interior colors and different things you can do with the roof line and the carbon fiber, either painted or not, or just the edges.
Yeah. No, it's really, if you look at the different modes, there's a different car inside of each one of the modes, David, as you might have seen. Hopefully you guys got a chance to see it, but everything from an eco mode and a Corvette to the straight track car.
Which is actually fun.
It is fun
because you get when the little V8 switches to V4, and it's like, how long can I stay in V4?
Yeah,
like I'm at 80 in
It's like
V4.
it's the new skip shift.
Yeah.
I want to see
it's
40
not
miles
skip
per
shift,
gallon.
though. I like how skip shift happens
4 +
like
3.
like between it's 100 RPM
I don't think
spread.
the fun part of the new Corvette is the eco mode.
One of the fun parts. One of the fun parts.
you
Hey,
know what?
3.1 liter V4 is pretty.
I've got to defend it as not being the new skip shift because it's nowhere near as annoying.
Right.
Not even close.
Touche.
Yeah.
You know, while we're on it, just because we have him here, and I know it's such a huge topic out in the comment land, can we get your take on automatics versus manuals, or automatics versus dual clutches?
Just
a transmission.
Not manuals versus dual clutches, not automatics.
Right.
Okay. Manual versus dual clutch. Okay.
As a performance guy.
I was going to say there's a lot of different. You could talk this on, B car segments or C car segments.
In the Corvette.
Yeah, in a Corvette. In a Corvette. We've had this discussion in detail as engineers in the company, and the thing that we can't get is the smooth actuation of an automatic and a DCT quite yet. Now, you can get the clicks with paddle shifts. I personally love that. I've loved it since the days that Audi and TT brought it into the market, and it was fabulous, and I loved it then. I still love it today. Is it everything in the end all? No. But if you want to have a car that gets the shift times to a place that you just quite can't get it on a regular automatic, then a DCT is the one to have. So, I mean, what are you doing with the car, right? I mean, that's the first question. What are you going to do with the car? Do you drive it every day? Do you drive it, at the track on the weekends? Those are all really important questions. And how are you going to position the car? How you position the car will answer the question of whether you have to have a DCT or not, I think.
What about for the purists?
The purists would want a DCT unless you're a real purist, in which case you have a regular manual shift box.
But I imagine
that's the true purist.
Like we saw you guys were benchmarking a lot of cars. 911, I saw there was an R8 in there, a bunch of stuff. And they're going to have DCT. So is there a push within your transmission guys to just make a dual clutch transaxle and throw it in? Or
there's I'm not sure on this generation of car, because of the way the car is positioned and what it does and where it's priced. The Corvette is a great fuel economy car. It is a great performance car.
Yeah.
It is not a sledgehammer that's 800 horsepower,
Not yet.
heavy-handed. Heavy-handed. It's a really highly engineered piece of equipment.
Right.
And so that you can drive every day, and it's attainable for a lot of people.
And really impressive that way.
Yeah.
It is.
And so, if you change the positioning of the car, and you say that you're going to do either an extension of the current car, or you go to a whole new architecture of the car and a new price point of the car, then you start talking about those kind of things, because it becomes a different car. It will be a different car. And so I'm not sure everybody wants that right now in a Corvette at this price point with this kind of performance level. I'm not sure people really want that.
But then there's a ZR1.
But then there's a ZR1.
And speaking of big horsepower, I couldn't help but notice the intake manifold on that LT1 is roughly the same shape as that supercharger on the LS9. I'm sure that's just a coincidence.
It is not a coincidence. The package envelope of those engines is very similar. There's a very creative supercharger package in there to get the whole thing, both from a current C6 ZR1 engine to the LSA found in the CTS-V. Those blower packages were done off of the low hood height of the C6.
Right.
That's what drove it, and it was very innovative. And we will continue to be, that place.
I was thinking you were getting real close to an admission about future product there.
Can we talk?
He didn't get to where he's
No,
at.
the Corvette team is very innovative with different things that will keep the car interesting, very interesting over the life cycle of the car.
I was gonna say, can we just throw out rumors we've heard and then just watch your facial reaction? You don't have to say anything.
You can do anything you
Try
want.
to poker face.
We'll just watch your PR team melt down over there.
Well, actually, one of those is, this is a price problem, I know, but maybe for ZR1 or something, has it ever been discussed making an all-wheel drive Corvette?
Yes, it has. And, again, you have to really look at the generation of car when you do that, David, as you know, being a hot rod guy. You can make anything work on one or two cars.
Mm-hmm.
The question is do you want to architect the frame to be able to do
Right.
it? And so, there has been discussions around, how would we do that? Because there comes a point when the power to weight piece of it, you can't get it all to the ground, right? As you guys know, so it becomes a question of tire patch and how many tire patches,
Right.
Right. And I'm just, this is very fundamental stuff,
Sure.
but absolutely. But I would say the team is more focused on getting the power to weight ratio really efficient, so that it can be something that doesn't require only hardware to get the power to ground, but rather material selection and engineering solutions that are really cost effective to keep the positioning of the Corvette in place, rather than adding even more power to an existing weight structure and then pricing it up because you've done that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Short
I mean,
version
that
means
formula-
make the car lighter.
Yeah, make the car lighter and
tire. I was
efficient.
just say tire
Really
technology, like those cup
Yep,
tires on
yep,
the
absolutely.
Z06 ZR1.
Very clever ways.
Right.
Very clever ways.
Speaking of Z06, and again, I just want to throw these out because I've heard them from various people. So next Z06, if there will be something like that, I've heard there will be a 7-liter and it'll be in the 600 horsepower neighborhood. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't comment on that. I really can't, because we haven't talked about a Z06 yet, and we certainly haven't talked about a Z06 powertrain yet. So neither one of those. But I would say, stay tuned, because again, the legacy of Corvette has always been to do some of these fantastic cars within the bandwidth of the life cycle of the car. So.
Well, let's talk about the tech you do have too. I mean, you're adding a lot more carbon fiber and aluminum and things like that into the Corvette. I mean, one of the knocks against GM cars in the past few years has been they're very heavy. And
Yep.
are we going to see some of that moving into?
Yeah,
the
it's a great point, because if you look at things like the ATS, which has been in development, you have to look at like what our reputation was and then how long we've been working on it to do some of the cars you're seeing today, which is like the ATS. Over the 3 or 4 year period since bankruptcy, we knew that was an Achilles heel in the company. The mass of the car was not something we were proud of. So what do we do about that? Well, you can either try and do individual pieces and panels on a current architecture, or you can take a new architecture approach like we did with Alpha, with the ATS, and we'll now spawn the CTS and beyond. That fundamental topology of joint construction and materials to produce a car that is lighter than the BMW 3 Series in that case, or a truck that is already 200 pounds lighter than a Ford F-150. Those kind of things are inherent in it, and the customer benefit becomes, I don't have to pay for sophisticated charged engines to get the efficiency and the duty cycle in the truck's case, or I get to have a better power to weight ratio in an ATS. And you haven't seen the full line of ATSs quite yet. and you haven't seen the full line of CTSs quite yet. Those things are sort of the GM of the past in my mind, because we've been working on them. It's easy for me to say that, but we've been working on it for a long time, so I feel like it's a distant past. You haven't seen all the products from that attitude quite yet, but you're starting to see them.
All right, so staying on this topic of lightweight, David, you have a question about drag racing?
I do, and you being a hot rod guy, you know sort of the history of what's happened with muscle cars. When did the marketing shift from inline acceleration drag racing to handling? And I'm also curious if you really think that the modern buyer understands things like Nürburgring numbers and relates that to, I need to buy that car.
Right. Two different questions there. One sort of the reality, and one sort of the how to use marketing around, performance credential type things, right?
Right.
I think the first one is, if you look at, GM was working on a front-wheel drive GM80 F car back in the 80s.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
that means
this was
Camaro.
Yeah, it was. It was, and actually we built prototypes of that, and the program was fairly advanced before it got canceled. But
Ford Probe was a big threat.
yeah, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
wow,
that's funny. Actually, but I think the thinking around around that really started back in the 80s there, and I think because the muscle car, pony car piece of that went away. For a period of time there, then it took a rest, right?
So the cars were gutless, so you had to go someplace else with performance, and that was a corner.
That was probably right around that time frame.
That's a good way to put it.
Write that down.
Speaking of funny,
Yeah, that's probably pretty true. But I think also it had to do with popularity and drivability of the car on a daily basis, right? Because these cars became much more sophisticated and drivable on a daily basis during that time frame too. So now they're both. But there's some pony cars that would be way more drag oriented than others today. Some that do both. So I'm not sure we're living in an era where it's one or the other. We make Copo Camaros that you can go out and drag race right out of the.
But you've got both Z28 and ZL1.
Yes.
Which are both.
At the launch for
hammered.
ZL1 was at Indy, and we went to a drag strip, and
Right.
we were launching them down there. And I've been talking to your PR team about, where do we do Z28? And they're talking strictly circuits. They're trying to find a good track somewhere to do that.
That car though always was. Z28s were not. They were homologated for SCCA Trans Am
Originally.
racing. Yeah, lightweight, handling, all that.
Sure.
And so that formula will be intact for the Z28.
Let's reveal what you told me off camera a minute ago about that ZL1 you brought us
last
year.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, the ZL1, right before we went to Chicago to show the car in show form, we took the badges off of it, went into the history books and looked at codes that better match the character of what that car was. It is a supercharged front engine car that is very sophisticated because of the magnetic ride piece of it.
Right.
It is thermally very capable on the track, diff coolers, the whole deal. EPS for the first time in a Camaro. Lots of things to counteract what that car is from an architecture standpoint, which it's not a light car. C5 is not a Camaro 5, the 5th gen is not a light car. And so what do we do to make it a track car? And so we did all that. Okay, the braking is phenomenal, but it's not a Z28. The Z28 again goes back to the early days of Trans Am racing, homologated for SCCA.
Right.
Acid dip panels in Penske, Trans Am cars, all that good stuff.
Right.
But the original Z28s were really high revving small blocks, right? And so we happen to have one of those, which is the LS7. Even though it's a 7-liter, the heart of that is still a small block. That is not a Mark engine or one of the big block engines. That's still a really high revving small block. So Wixom, which is our hand-built plant, is going to move to Bowling Green.
Right, I knew that.
And so before we did that, I said, we will keep that facility open in that location before we move it down to Bowling Green. We'll keep that facility open in that location to do that engine for that car because it's so good. And I know, and we made a chart. I remember the meeting. We made a chart that showed the power to weight ratio. Even on our competitors, what we know powertrain-wise they could do, they can't get there with their cars. There's no way to get there. So I said, this is the car we got to do and call it a Z28. The team agreed, and we went and negotiated a contract to keep that plant open. and before we moved to the Bowling Green, and we'll hand make those engines for the Z28 as sort of the last run of the LS7 in current form, and the last run of that plant. And so it'll be very cool. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm proud of the team because that naming of this, I own a ZL1, probably own a Z28 too. But those cars mean very different things, at least to me spiritually.
But internally, the ZL1 was going to be a Z28.
Yes, it was. It was all done
until you and I guess Al said this isn't right.
Well, it was at the time it was myself and really Tom Peters. Stood in a studio and looked at it, and I said, do you really understand what this car is and what it's going to be and what it can do? It's quite different than what a Z28 could be off of this architecture if we do this.
Right.
And so we all then went and sold that back.
I just realized that we are totally forgetting to ask Mark the burning question on our minds that actually the YouTube guys want to know, and we're going to go back to Corvette, is, now, how come we couldn't get it for Best Driver's Car again? Remember, I tweeted at you.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, let me refresh your memory.
That was a kind of a big downer in the office that day.
Yeah, we are getting hammered for not having the C7 at our Best Driver's Car this year. Your team promised it, and then they pulled it a couple weeks ahead. I was frantic. I called everybody.
I know.
Yep. Contacted you. I think you were on vacation, or you were at Indy actually, and I said, just give us the pace car, give us anything.
Right.
What do you have? And you did check. But yeah, I would just love for you to tell everybody, like how come we have to go and wait for next year when, unfortunately, the time was perfect. C7 this year, Z28 next year.
Yeah, well, I mean, you contacted me on Twitter and sent me a direct message, which I responded to.
Yeah.
This is how we talk to all higher ups.
Right. And I knew how important it was. We all did, and Monty and Mike and myself. We're launching the car. I mean, we are in launch of the car, and the whole plant and all the engineers are in the plant in Bowling Green doing this. And we're producing a very small amount of cars and going through extreme quality checks on the car. Right. And so we flat out didn't have availability on it. And you can't predict how many cars you're going to spit out of those quality gates. That's why we have the gates. If we knew all that and we knew all the dates, then we'd be perfect, and we don't need people like me or anybody else in the company to launch cars. They moved mountains to get you one,
right.
And they did, but it just wasn't for your test, and that's why.
I'm just trying to get those guys off my back.
I mean, that's the truth, and we're not gonna. Someone asked me, when are you gonna cut the Corvette loose? And I said, when it's ready.
Right. Good answer.
So it's gonna be ready. It's gonna be as perfect as we can make it, and. Everybody's so proud of the car, and we're just not going to take that away from anybody, and our customers are going to be wildly satisfied. So,
well, then let's project to next year for Best Driver's Car. Now we have a dilemma. We have to have Corvette and the Z28 there. What?
Yeah, what a dilemma.
What do we do? What should we spec the car? Maybe you can tell us.
Which car?
Both, either. I mean, Z28 is going to be monospec.
Yeah, well, okay. The Z28 it should be white. And it should be with the black elements on it, and then with the black wheels on it, and it has like two options. One of them is get rid of the AC, so get rid of that weight. And
do it in Central California.
You realize I'm not going to motor for 100 degrees.
Oh yeah! Ooh, zing!
Nice shirt, Freiburger.
Okay, and then Corvette. Let's say we're around the June-July timeframe. Any special?
How are you going to test it?
We go up Highway 198, so a canyon road, up and down, and then we go to Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca. We have our Manifold pro driver, who's already maybe been in the car and preferred sport mode over track mode.
Maybe,
so he knows.
And he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Okay. I would
be a drag race in there too somewhere.
Yeah. I would do honestly the 7-speed with the rev matching. Obviously, is highly entertaining if you're going to do some highway driving and stuff, and you're going to write about being entertained with the car.
Yeah.
That's really good. The automatic is really cool when it shifts through paddle shifts.
Right.
What it does, it fires the exhaust.
Oh.
Fires the exhaust when it cracks. Okay, so if you haven't done that in an automatic, do that. It's very cool. But the performance piece of it has got to be Z51, right? Obviously with the dry sump motor, and you get everything with that pretty much. But I would say also the solid carbon fiber roof, not the see-through piece,
Yes.
is another must because it's got a beautiful suede thing and it doesn't burn your head. And I'm losing my hair, so it's important to me. But it's also it's a very nice looking thing. And it's good for testing.
I hear black wheels are the way to go. All the engineers like the black
I don't know.
wheels.
I don't know. I'm kind of black wheeled out on the Corvette.
That's silver with the black wheels, though.
I think
It
the white
is.
with the
It's
black.
good. It's good. The white with the black is good, but I'm a polished wheel guy, not a chrome wheel guy, and so the polished wheel is a beautiful wheel in the car.
All right, speaking of polish, we have limited time. Let's jump back to Cadillac and talk about your Pebble Beach announcement, the beautiful concept, the El Mirage.
Beautiful concept. Yep, Ed Wilburn and Clay Dean and the whole advanced team did just a wonderful job with the car. There's a lot of things in that car that you need to pay attention to because they look to the future of Cadillac.
The badge.
Well, the fact that it's a name instead of alphabet soup.
Yeah, we've been hearing about that for a while.
Yeah.
But the badge I hear is the reefless Cadillac crest is kind of maybe the future.
I love that badge.
Yeah.
There you go.
Boom.
All right.
I love the
Next
badge,
question.
and we'll see. But one of the reasons why you do concept cars is to get the reactions.
Yeah.
Well,
Does
I'll tell
the
you,
name connect at all to El Mirage Dry Lake here in California?
That's exactly what it connects to.
Okay,
So-
but spelled differently.
Spelled differently. Yeah, that's
But
exactly.
it could
What's
also
the
be
Cadillac connection to that?
El Dorado.
El Dorado.
Well, I think number one, we're showing the car in California.
Okay.
So I think that's. I wouldn't read too much into the name of it though, because the name is the name, and it's a beautiful name, and it's hard to say.
El Mirage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and hard to spell and all that, but it's a beautiful thing, and it's sort of a salute to California, and that's where we showed the car. So
Where hot rodding started.
exactly,
And the CL is really a California thing too.
it is.
Well, no,
absolutely.
yeah. So
Absolutely.
okay, you've shown the CL 2 years ago, and then you brought it back. Scott and I were there when the El Mirage came out, and the CL showed up and drove around. And
Yep.
It's still one of the most stunning concept cars of all time. So you have that, you have the El Mirage, which
Clear theme going on here.
well, but very beautiful. So they're both full size. Where's the full size Cadillac? Like where are we with that? Where are you with that?
Well, I'd just say that we've gotten, we're a luxury brand. Okay, first of all, we are a luxury brand. It's seen that way because of the work that's gone on for the last 10 years or so. We're now getting into the brand where there's beauty dialed into the science piece of it, and you're going to see a much wider appeal on the cars, which I think you're seeing design-wise, starting with the ATS, and you'll see it on the CTS, obviously. We don't have a full luxury portfolio.
Right.
And so we will have a full luxury portfolio when we're done. And so that's the way to think about that.
CL's so gorgeous. Obviously, like having headlights that are the bumpers, you can't do that. Mirage is very good looking, but like, will a four-door Mirage complete your portfolio? Is the CL going to be like another 16?
Well,
or
yeah,
just sort of lost to time?
I don't. First of all, the media has had a field day when someone from inside the company allegedly said we're not doing a Cadillac flagship, which is,
Right.
whoever's saying all this stuff allegedly,
Right.
it's BS. Okay, so we're going to fill out the portfolio for Cadillac. That's the way to think about it. Period. And so you can look into the other luxury manufacturers and look at what their portfolio is.
Right.
And
we
we're
do
going to
that.
do that. But I would look at that car just like you looked at the CL. And the CL and the front of that CL, theme-wise, shows up in the CTS.
Right.
In the front
For
of that.
sure. For sure.
Think about what we're looking at design-wise on that car for the future portfolio fill-in of Cadillac.
Okay.
See, we figured we just got to ask you because when Al was here, he told us that when you guys decided Z28 wasn't the right name, you told him, well, then you have to go build me a Z28. So we figured we'll just tell you.
No,
We're going to tell the Cadillac guys
that's
to go build a car.
Yeah, that's really not what happened. It's not, and so we looked we sat in a conference room, and we looked at the power to weight ratio on each one of these variants that would make a Z28. Okay, and that's what we did. And they said, well, we're scheduled to switch Wixom to Bowling Green. I said, well, we can keep it open to do this engine, but I want the LS7 in this car. We need to take 300 pounds out of it. We need to go at every gram of this to get it, so that we get the power to weight ratio that can't be duplicated by anybody else. So I didn't,
you were one of
I
those-
didn't, you know, I don't
one of those
operate
Cadillac
that
collection
way.
meetings.
I just want to tell you, I don't operate that way where I go out and say, oh, then build me this. I'm an engineer, okay? I've been involved with a lot of cars. We sit and architect these cars, and it's very detailed and it's very data driven. Yeah.
Okay, one last Cadillac question. ats-v, we've heard it's coming. Somebody told me that the Alpha platform was future-proofed for a V8. Can you comment on that?
A V8 will fit in the Alpha platform.
Okay, that's my
All
question.
right.
Wow. All right. Well, okay. So I have. That
Long so long, got that cleared up.
was very good. Okay. So now the rumor mill starts.
Right?
I have one last question based on your comments that you just gave to a bunch of assembled journalists at a hotel nearby.
Yeah.
You said at LA Auto Show you will be announcing or showing something that will be the linchpin of the Chevrolet brand. Can you expand on that at all?
You know, we've talked a lot about what's coming here in our truck portfolio, and then I think there's some other things that we'll talk about as well that are very important to the business of North America. So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Very, very good. So basically, pay attention, LA Show.
Yeah,
It'll be there.
it's a big deal for it. No, I mean it really is. It's a huge deal for us. I think it gives the company strategic agility that we haven't had before around any regulatory or future economic conditions that may happen in the industry or the United States or Canada or Mexico. And for that reason, I think it's extremely important.
You guys have changed your strategy from just pushing as many cars out there as you possibly can.
Right.
So what's the
Yeah, I
what's the
mean,
new
if you
plan?
look at the company and frankly, most of my career in GM, it was a structural cost reduction exercise where we ran plants to thin structural cost, and then our field staff was concentrated on pushing cars and trucks into our dealerships, and then we would incentivize them to sell them. Really bad business model. And so we've changed the whole distribution system in North America to a demand-based system. So it's a turn and earn system.
So this, just to totally speculate here, this linchpin, it sounds like it's more of an architecture, like announcement than like a single product.
Yeah, well,
Would that be fair to say?
yeah, absolutely. It's an architecture that provides us agility across many different segments.
And is this just Chevrolet, or would this affect
No,
Buick and
yeah, no,
Cadillac?
it's a company approach, but it's our strategy and it's quite divergent from our competitors.
Interesting. All your competitors.
Well,
Yep.
they compete with everybody.
Well, no, I'm just, it's reminding me of another company, but
All right.
Pretty much. Yeah, no, it is. It's quite different.
Right. Okay. So well, that's some really good speculation, guys. And if you have any ideas as to what he's talking about, please write it down in the comments section. We'll take a look at it. Pay attention to what's going on at the LA Auto Show, and join us again next week for another episode of Wide Open Throttle. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
it's fun.
Thank you.